This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I talk about all the sports that happened over the weekend and over the past week. We specifically talk about, well, March Madness and how it's affected our, let's just say, brackets and our maybe self-esteem. I don't know, but it has definitely caused some chaos. And then we talk about the World Baseball Classic. Is it a worthless tournament? Should they even be allowing Major League Baseball players to play in it? We discuss that, and then we finish up by talking about the big free agent signings in the NFL. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. And we're both wearing some type of red because we are trying to represent what our brackets have done to our heart. It has caused us to bleed and to have internal damage.
Ben, where's your red?
It's the lights. The lights.
Oh, okay.
It's the lights. You see, I have these
Fair
lights
enough.
of
I
sadness
got you, yeah.
behind me. No, I mean, it is fascinating this time of year, Josh, because you have obviously the NFL draft coming up. So you have a lot of these different, combines, pro days, everything like that. And then you also have, basketball happening, right? Women's and men's college basketball. I just want to point out the Ohio State women's basketball team did beat your Carolina Tar Heels women's basketball team. Just want to point that out. I don't want to make a big deal about it, but I'm just pointing that out.
I don't even know what women's basketball is.
Hey, you know what? We try to pride ourselves in every sport. And also with that, you have baseball coming along, which we will talk about all these different things in today's show. But Josh, before we get into that, how was your weekend? How did you enjoy this first kind of craziness of March Madness plus everything else going on in your world?
I didn't get to watch a ton of games, just work schedule and other plans, but was definitely getting notified and texted about what was going on. And I got some of the upsets right. Called the Furman one, missed out on Princeton. Also had Purdue not reaching the Sweet 16, but the team that beat them wasn't who I expected it to be. And man, dude, I mean, we're going to dive into it, and then on top of all that too, just I know we're not going to talk a ton about it, but Leon Edwards defeated Kamaru Usman again. He is defending the belt, still the king of that weight class. So it's going to be interesting, maybe seeing where Kamaru Usman goes from here, maybe a future discussion for another day. But I know you want to dive into some of these basketball games.
Yeah.
What have you, or I guess, what's your impression so far from these first two rounds?
That my bracket is my bracket's like literally I'm so upset at some of these teams. Like I don't have a dog in the fight, but I'm just angry. The fact that my bracket, this might be the fastest my bracket has ever just disappeared, right? Like in my bracket, I only have in the Midwest, I'm doing great. The Midwest I've been calling straight down the line, right? That's been great. But then everything else, I have one Final Four team left, which probably won't actually end up happening. But Purdue losing was probably the biggest shocker for me.
Biggest shocker, man.
But I think too, like we talked about
the biggest upset.
Yeah, we talked this with Joe a little bit. I think the one thing everyone said was like, what happens when Eddie is not Eddie, right? And what happens when he's kind of held down, or what happens when they don't?
That was my whole reasoning for why I thought that it would be Memphis eliminating them, but they didn't even get a chance to play Memphis. Memphis didn't get a chance to play Purdue either, though, because FAU ended up getting them. That was a team that you guys were high on.
Yeah, I
very high on. Yeah, so you did get that right, but yeah, man.
And I got to credit. Well, I got to give credit to them, right? They came in the shortest team in the country by average height, and they said we don't care if we have a 6'2" guy on a 7'4" guy, right? Like it's the idea of David versus Goliath, and I think this one is more pivotal than the Virginia one because I felt like Virginia one that could have went either way. This one felt dominated at times.
Yeah, the Virginia one, Virginia was like up the whole time, and then they just had the I guess ill-advised pass at the end, and then Furman took advantage of it. But yeah, you're right about the Purdue thing. They really didn't feel good about it if you were watching. I got to watch the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, and even
of that game, and it just Purdue never looked like they were in control.
No, and I think even as like Ohio State fans, you're sitting there like, man, like you're that close, right? Or these other teams in the Big Ten like had leads against Purdue. But I think what it did show, and I think Josh, you can agree with me on this, that like that's what makes March Madness so amazing is that these teams, like what did they have compared to Purdue? Purdue had this expectation, whereas FDU didn't have anything. They said, we're going to come in there, we're going to give everything we got, and we're going to make you earn it. And Purdue, I believe, just thought they could walk through them. They have a 7'4" center. Well, you can't stop us. And even though they did end up winning that next game, the head coach now is going to be the head coach of Iona. That just was announced today as we're recording this.
Yep.
Or he's in agreement of because Patino, another crazy thing that happened, right? Iona didn't do what I thought they would do, but he ends up getting a job at St. John's. But again, there's some other games that I really thought were interesting. Obviously, FAU is, I think, a dark horse in that region to make a big push. And the way they've played, the way they've kind of dominated the way they have here early on. I think another shocker for me was Kansas losing. Obviously, like I think a lot of that was Bill Self. I think without Bill Self there, they just weren't the same. I think there was something missing without your head coach there, because I really thought Kansas could do it and win it all, and I believed in them. But every year I get proven wrong again. Don't always believe the obvious. And again, I think those are the main ones I think that everyone will say. But one of the ones that shocked me a little bit was Marquette. Like Marquette kind of it was just a weird game. And I was very shocked that they folded the way they did. And the only other one I want to talk about is how Xavier saved at least my bracket from being complete dumpster fire. When they about lost that first game, I texted Josh. I think I did. I think I said like, "Oh, there goes my bracket. I hate March Madness or whatever." But as my brother would say, that's what makes March Madness so amazing. Is these underdogs they make this so much fun. But enough of me rambling on. Josh, what did you notice from these first few games, and anything shock for you, or how's your bracket? Is it frustrating, or what's going on there?
So bracket wise, I got 9 of the 16 left, I guess. I'm just like you. I got all 4 Midwest teams right. The ones that I missed out on that didn't make it, I did have Furman making it one step further, but San Diego State's in their place. I thought NC State might be another team that could make a little run, but instead it's Creighton as expected. Princeton's still here though. Princeton not only got by Arizona, but then they also got by Missouri.
Yeah.
The lowest seed still remaining.
Well, that was the other one. That's the other one I wanted to say I was shocked by.
That is another team. Yeah, a bunch of nerds from the Ivy League, as Jake Crane said on his show since he picked Arizona. Yeah, you're from a conference that lets guys play in girls sports, but I gotta tip my cap to you anyway. Yeah. Let's see. I missed out on Kansas as well. Arkansas is still here. And very quick, Ben, Arkansas was that team that we were like, they got all this talent, but they haven't been able to put it together all year. They've been inconsistent. I remember last week you said if they haven't done it up to this point, why at this point? And to an extent, I agreed with you. I thought they could get at least one win, but they've also kind of been on this ultimatum from their athletic department that if they don't at least make an Elite Eight, I think everybody in the program's getting fired, losing their job. So perhaps there's a little bit more that they're playing for right now, and they get by not only was it Illinois in the first round, but also Kansas, who was your champion that you predicted and who I almost picked as my champion.
Yeah, Arkansas was interesting because I want to make this clear because I had some people that listened were like, man, you think Arkansas is not that good? I'm like, I never said they weren't good. I just said they hadn't proved it yet. Like I know that the talent's there for Arkansas, but it reminds me a lot of that Kentucky team. I think from what year was it when they went undefeated? They ended up losing in the tournament, didn't win it at all.
Was it the year that they were like a 7 seed and played UConn, who was like an 8 seed in the national championship game?
Yeah, or something like that. I can't remember.
Julius Randle. Kentucky
I think
team.
It was something like that, and they choked.
That was a team very similar. I think what you're describing. They were all young. There was NBA talent there. They just weren't really able to put it together all in the regular season. Then the tournament, they caught fire at the right time. And UConn did seem at like seemingly the same time because I think it was 2 low seeds.
And I think it was like after the year or 2 after they went undefeated, or like went like with 1 loss the whole season.
Not too long after, the 2012 team with Anthony Davis, I think only lost 1 game or maybe went undefeated, perfect season.
I think they lost because they lost to Indiana. I remember that was the 1 game they lost because it was that late shot in Indiana.
Oh, the Christian Wofford shot. Yeah. Okay. Yep. That was around that time. Yep. So that was their only loss. Then they ran the table after.
Yeah. And I think for me, I'm not saying that Arkansas can't run the table. I think they can, but I look in that bracket and they're going to have to play. Who are they playing?
They got to play UConn first, and by the way, winner of Gonzaga, UCLA.
Hats off to Joe. I mean, Joe didn't really like them, but Joe did say this is a team, and everyone's saying UConn's the best looking team in the tournament right now. And Joe did say that this team, all the analytics love, and UConn is going in there. So I don't think Arkansas makes it out of the. I don't think they make it out of the Sweet 16, to be honest with you. And if they do, there's no way they're getting by the way UCLA is playing right now. UCLA, I think, is going to be a team that's going to be tough to mess with. Gonzaga, I don't really like. Yeah, Gonzaga is one of those teams that I just can't trust Gonzaga. I just can't.
They can get to the Sweet 16, and that's about it. Usually, once they got to play one of those like top 3 seeds, it's usually it's done at that point.
Yeah. So I do think though that like yeah, I don't know, man. I just this whole is it just me, Josh? Maybe you can help me out on this. Does this year feel like the weirdest March Madness we've ever had since we've grown up? Like, I feel like this is the weirdest March Madness in the sense that there is no dominant team that you're going to look at and like they're going to win it all. Like, this might be just the weirdest one, at least for my memory.
It's kind of tough to say. I feel like, I mean, we did have a 16 seed win, we had a 15 seed win, but I feel like there's been more upsets in past seasons. Or maybe we had about the same amount of upsets, but the dust just kind of cleared. And it's like in the Midwest region, for example, we got the 1, 2, 3, and 5 teams over there. In the West, we got the 2, 3, 4, and 8. Over in the East, we got the 9, the 4, the 3, and the 7. So that one's kind of messy. And that was one that we were saying was going to be kind of interesting to follow. And then in the South, you got 1, 5, 6, and 15. So really that whole like left side of the bracket kind of ended up a little funky, but the right side is about what most people would expected, I guess, with the exception of maybe Kansas. But
yeah,
it does still kind of feel like, if we had to like redraw a bracket right now with these 16 that are left,
who's the hottest?
I might still stick with UCLA, even knowing that I think it was Jalen Clark that was injured. But I mean, it's tough to say. Like, Bama hasn't really played anybody tough yet. You can't really judge them at this point. To an extent,
Houston either.
Houston as well. Yeah, the 1 seeds have only had to play like an 8 or 9, and then it's 16. So it's kind of tough to say from that perspective. But teams that I guess have been looking pretty solid, just based on box scores. You could say that Creighton is one of those teams. Got by NC State by 9, and then got by Baylor by 9 points as well. So they only got to play Princeton. And then they're going to play if they win that one, the winner of Bama, San Diego State. I'd say another team that I think is looking solid. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say UCLA. They gutted it out with Northwestern to get to the Sweet 16. And then, like we've been mentioning too, with Arkansas, they've had to beat 2 good teams to get to this point. So I don't think you can count them out either.
Yeah,
like you were saying, it's
just
maybe
weird.
The most dominant team so far has been Miami, because they beat Drake. I know it was only 63-56, but then they played IU and won 85-69.
Yeah, but UConn's also been playing very well as well. That's another team too.
Right. As we were just saying, the analytics like them, and UConn blasted Iona in that first matchup, not even close, 87-63. Then they play St. Mary's, a 5 seed, and win 70-15. So yeah, even more dominant than what I was just saying with Miami there. So
and fun fact, Miami I think is one of the first schools, or one of the only schools to ever in a 2-day period in the same tournament in women's and men's beat the same school, because they
beat IU both times. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's just rough, by the way. By the way, Indiana fans had to deal with Purdue losing, Indiana losing in both the men's and women's, and Purdue lost in the women's as well. I mean, poor Indiana. I'm sorry. It's okay. Can't be as bad as North Carolina fans, but it's up there. I'm sorry, Josh.
Being from Indiana for a little bit, Ben, I can tell you that all the IU fans were having a blast with that Purdue loss, only to probably just still with enough self-awareness to be like, yeah, but we're gonna lose like our next game anyways too. So,
but I think it's tougher for Indiana though, in the sense that in their women's seed they had the number 1 seed. They were the number one seed.
Yeah, so you're expected to do more on that side. Yeah.
Anyways, so that is craziness that's happening on in March Madness.
That is some craziness. So now that we've kind of talked about everything that has happened, Ben, these games are starting up on Thursday, I believe. Yes. Which game are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, that's a tough one. Ooh, that is a. Ooh.
There's 2 out here that I'm particularly interested in.
Sorry, I'm grabbing my paper here. People are watching.
While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and say
Yeah, go.
Arkansas and UConn is the game that I am most excited to see
Okay.
the result of,
Okay.
just because the
Talent wise.
yeah, the Arkansas talent, if it continues to play out the way it has, and then UConn, if they can maintain this hotness, I mean, it's going to be I mean, it's nothing that Arkansas hasn't seen yet. So
Yeah.
I mean, from that standpoint, it's like, okay, well, they just beat Kansas. So UConn can't be much more of a challenge, right? But as we just said, UConn's been playing really well, pretty consistent throughout the regular season as well. So that's a game that I'm excited to see. And then staying in that region too, I'm intrigued by the Gonzaga UCLA matchup as well. I feel like the winner of that, I mean, I know it's 2-3, but I feel like the winner of that game is going to be the one that's going to the Final Four.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm interested to see the Creighton Princeton matchup. And the only reason is because I think this is the one big chance I think we have Princeton. I think this is the one chance we can see a 15 seed go to the Elite Eight. I really do. Like, I think this, I know I think it's happened once before? Has it happened once before? 15 seed going
I
Elite
don't
Eight?
know how far a 15 seed has
Yeah.
gotten before, but I think the highest possible seed they could have faced in this game was what, a 3 seed at this
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would have been Baylor, and Baylor
Yeah.
didn't get by. So
I think this is for them like I think it'd be so cool to see an Ivy League school, going against maybe Bama, right, in the Elite Eight, and then imagine if Princeton made it all the way to the Final Four. Like that'd just be a great story, right? A great storyline. But for me, even like Creighton, because I counted them out, like I didn't even think they were going to make it out of the first round,
yeah, I called a
and
first round
I
upset too
think
for them, and
I
it
think
didn't
Creighton
happen.
could prove a lot of people wrong. So that's probably one of the bigger games that I'm looking forward to. And the other one I'm really looking forward to is actually Xavier versus Texas. I think that game is going to be fantastic because Xavier went from being struggling in that first round to just really manhandling Pitt, to be honest. And I think Xavier could really do some damage against Texas. But again, I'm maybe saying this to save whatever bracket part of my brackets left. But again, I'm really excited for that. And I guess the third one I'll throw in there is don't be shocked to see the Miami Houston game surprise people. That's all I'm going to say. I think that one could
That could
surprise people.
I do have Miami winning that one from our bracket. So that's the way that I drew it up. Yeah, I had Purdue being the first one to get out, and then I believe Houston was my second one to get knocked out. So just from that standpoint too, like another one, I guess on the upset alert here.
So yeah, that's what I think. And again, I guess out of the teams that are left, I mean, it's very interesting to see who's going to make the Final Four. Like, I think there's going to be one that gets out into the Final Four. I think just out of the two that are left, I think one of them does make to the Final Four. I think Bama's the more likely one because they have an easier route.
Are all four of your Final Four teams still alive, Ben? I'm trying to remember from last week.
No, Arizona's gone. No, Purdue's gone, and Kansas gone. So I have Xavier left.
I do have to be a little transparent here. After we discussed all of our brackets with you and Joe, I ended up making Kansas State my team out of that East region to be my Final Four team instead of Tennessee.
You changed it.
I did change it. You guys convinced me. You guys convinced me, and I had to do it. I wanted to change some other games as well, but I stopped myself, and I was like, okay, now that I know that Tennessee,
Joe is going to give you a hard time now, though. You know that,
that's
right?
okay, because you guys brought up. I was riding on Tennessee because of how great their defensive play had been all season, and then when Joe mentioned that one of their best defenders, or like their best defender, was out for game, it's like, okay, well, now the defense isn't going to be good or as good, and their scoring also isn't going to be that great because that's not what they've been relying on. So it's like I can't do it. So just in the spirit of transparency, I had to let everybody know Tennessee is not my team out of the Final Four anymore. It's Kansas State. And even regardless, Tennessee's still here. All four of my Final Four teams are still here. Refresh, it's UCLA, Texas, Kansas State, and Bama that I have.
See, it was so funny because we all were in agreement before we recorded last week's episode that we don't change brackets.
I didn't want to, but that was just too much. That was just too much. I heard how much you hated my Tennessee pick.
Oh, I hated it.
And then I heard Joe break down that Tennessee also wasn't as strong as what they had been. It's like, I gotta change it.
See, this is why we work together, Josh. This is why we're a good team. We bring it together and we fix our wrongs. Yet for some reason we couldn't fix my bracket. But that's just besides the point. but yeah, man, I think it's been and I think it's gonna be interesting to see, who comes out. Like again, I hope Xavier makes it just because of the last one I have left. But I do think I think Kansas State has a great shot of making it. I think Alabama has. I mean, I would love to see Princeton in there. That'd be just freaking awesome. And I think it would be awesome to see. Like, I would love to see like a Princeton versus Kansas State matchup in one Final Four, and then just to throw everyone off, like a Xavier versus Arkansas Final Four, like just to make everyone so mad, like just to make the all NCAA people just be like, this is not fun anymore. I want, I want actual teams. It's like, no, that makes it fun. I love to see that, not have the blue bloods in there. It'd be awesome to see. But again, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, dude, if Princeton ended up making it all the way, I mean, I know we haven't verified what the farthest to 15 seed has made. Maybe we can do a little bit of live fact checking right here. We'll see how well the
Live
internet's
fact
running
checking
right now. Yeah.
All we'll say is, Truth Social is where it's at. It's just my little semi plug. I don't know why. But no, I think, yeah, I would love to see Princeton make
the
the
only
Final Four.
2 15 seeds have advanced, or only 2 15 seeds have advanced past the second round. Florida Gulf Coast made it to the
That's
Sweet
right.
16
Yeah,
in
I remember that,
2013.
Dunk
Oral
City.
Roberts made it in 2021.
We don't talk about them.
So that's the farthest.
Hey, we don't mention that name. That name does not be mentioned during that year.
Oral Roberts.
Shut up.
So there's only been 2 to even make the Sweet 16. Princeton would be the 3rd, and that's as far as any of them have gotten.
So this could be a first.
Comment below, guys. Are we
That's
going to
true.
see a 6 or a 15 seed finally reach the Elite Eight?
Will it happen? That's the question for you to answer, and we'll see what happens. But enough of the March Madness talk. I mean, because we all know that brackets are just, everyone's bracket's trash. If you say your bracket's amazing, then you just need to get something checked, because it's not. Okay, let's just be honest with each other. Most likely it's your mother that has the best one, because she probably chose by uniform color, and then somehow that has just now all of a sudden been the best one. So, but Josh, what else do we have on the docket for today that we wanted to touch base on before, the craziness starts here in a few weeks?
Yeah. So you in the mood to talk about some meaningless baseball?
Josh,
as some people on the internet have said, because I don't think this is meaningless baseball.
I don't either.
I'm going to go ahead and say it.
This is freaking
None of these
awesome
players
baseball.
do either. But before we were talking, you had mentioned Keith whatever the heck.
Oberman, I think.
Keith Irrelevant.
Yeah, pretty much.
What he had to say about World Baseball Classic.
Can you explain first what, for those that don't know what the World Baseball, because I know some people are baseball listeners, but they might not know, or some people that are sports listeners.
World Baseball Classic is a tournament of teams around the world that play baseball in a classic.
Very good.
Very good. But so it's basically like the World Cup.
The World Cup. Yeah. It's World Cup of baseball.
That way.
And they have different regions. So like there's a European region, which I believe this year it was the UK. It was Great Britain, Czech Republic, Italy. I think that's who it was. Yes.
Your guess is as good as mine.
And then Asia.
I just know who all the elite countries were.
Basically they're just like split up. So then you have the South America region and the Central America, and then North America. Then you have Asia, Oceania, and then you have Europe, and then Africa. But I don't think any African teams made it this year. But yeah, so it's fascinating. But I don't know. Go ahead and talk about what your thoughts are on the World Baseball Classic, because Josh knows my thoughts, and I'll talk about Keith Oberlin here in a second. Oberman, whatever your name is. But give me your thoughts, Josh, on what you think, why you think it makes it so amazing, and what your thoughts are of this tournament specifically this year.
Yeah, before it all started, I was doing a little bit of research so I could be like up to date on what all countries are supposed to be good, who won last year, because I couldn't remember, and so forth. And I had noticed that most of the World Baseball Classic games were setting record TV ratings in the countries whose teams were playing. Like wild numbers, like 60-something% of TVs in Japan being tuned in, and 40-something% of TVs in Cuba being tuned in to watch Cuba's games. And it's like these countries are watching these games like Americans watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, what sparked all of this, because the most notable injury we've had in the World Baseball Classic now was Edwin Diaz, closer for the Mets. It actually wasn't even a playing injury. They were celebrating the win. He injured himself, and now he's probably going to need season-ending surgery. And Barstool KFC, who is a Mets fan, absolutely pissed about it. Just going on rants on Twitter about
Is
how
that
there's
what's his name? What's that guy? Isn't it like Fat something or I don't
I
remember
don't
his
know
name.
what it stands for.
Yeah.
It's not Kentucky Fried Chicken,
Yeah,
though.
I know that.
But uh, he was just going on tirade about how these superstar players that are being paid millions of dollars by their MLB teams should be like respecting that and not be playing meaningless baseball games. And then you just kind of see like how meaningful these games are to not only these countries, but then you hear the players, guys like Randy Rosarena making insane catches and saying that's like the most amazing catch I've ever had in my career, even more so than the one he had in the playoffs with his team, the Tampa Bay Rays. You see Trey Turner hit a grand slam, a guy that's had walk-off hits in the playoffs before this team, and he said that was the biggest home run of my career. And you see, I mean, there's a lot of stories like that of
Or even
guys just
Adam Rainwright.
Adam Wainwright,
Said
the most fun he's had playing baseball has
he's
been the World
41 years
Baseball
old.
Classic.
He's 41 years
Yadier
old.
Molina in the past has said he would rather win a World Baseball Classic championship than a World Series ring. And it just seems that the players really do care about this. And I don't know if it's all just to troll these guys or if they actually do mean it. Either way, it's fun to watch. And as I said before, the fans in the other countries definitely care. I think maybe the reason the ratings aren't so high in America is just because we get to kind of watch all these guys play. It's running around at the same time March Madness is. The time zones make the game times really weird. Some games have been at like 6 a.m. It's like, I'm not watching that. I'm not getting up to watch it. But the weird channels, and then we also get to watch all these guys play in the regular season anyways. And then you also have, I guess, the minority of people too that are like, even if they could watch it, they wouldn't because they're like, these are meaningless games. So that is, I guess, context filling in on what's been going on. As we speak, Japan and the United States are playing for the championship. That game is tonight. By the time this episode comes out, we'll already have a winner. So we're not really going to do too much breaking down the matchups of Shohei Ohtani going against Mike Trout and things like that. But fill us in on, I guess, what Keith said and what your take was on that, Ben.
Yeah. First off, I want to just say that there are some amazing stories in this World Baseball Classic. Josh, what do we love about the Olympics, right? We love the Olympics because there's stories. We hear about people that come from bad situations or have come from poverty and now look what they're doing, right? With their talents that God gave them. And you hear about the guy from Nicaragua who struck out, I believe it was 3 Dominican Republican players, like 3 all-stars that are MLB all-stars.
That team was stacked, dude.
And he was 21 years old. He struck them all out. And after the game, there was a scout there from the Detroit Tigers, and they signed him to a minor league deal. Like, if this was meaningless, Keith Oberman, whatever your name is, if this was meaningless, then you're telling me that this guy would have never got the opportunity to go play the dream of his life from a kid from Nicaragua who's 21 years old, who never got to play in any big league outside the Mexican League. To me, that's what like bothered me the most is like when you say that you're saying that this doesn't matter to this guy, right? Or that it doesn't matter to these Czech Republican guys who, by the way, none of them play professionally baseball all the time, except Sogard, who is half Czech through his mom or something like that. And he plays for the A's, but he's the only one that was a professional baseball player. All these other guys were electricians, car mechanics, teachers, professors. And you saw what happened when they struck out Shohei Ohtani with an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. They had the whole team sign a jersey and then gave it to Shohei Ohtani. This is what baseball means. This is why I've said that baseball is one of the greatest sports out there because it brings so many people together. It's just like soccer. It brings so many people together. And for you to say from your high stool of wherever you're working now, whether it's ESPN or whatever, it probably is politically driven or whatever, it's ridiculous because Josh, you know, the Olympics mean so much to these people. And if I remember right, I saw a picture of Adam Wainwright while I think the national anthem was played. He's right next to the flag on his knees praying. If this doesn't mean anything to them, then why do they come out and say it's the best thing they've ever done? It's the best fun we've ever had. It's the most excitement we've ever had. I mean, it's like playing the Olympics. It's like winning a gold medal for your country, the bragging rights. And I know for the U.S., and I believe it was the Mexican manager said, yes, Japan won tonight. They're going to the final, but baseball won overall.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball is what is happening. And for people to say that the game is dying, it's not dying.
Maybe in
It's
America,
just
but
in
worldwide,
America, worldwide.
it's
It's
growing,
amazing.
man.
Look at
It's
Czech
growing
Republic.
worldwide.
Czech Republic won a game in the World Baseball Classic, right? China was there. Australia was there. You had Chinese Taipei. You had Nicaragua, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, go on and on. At the end of the day, I think this is amazing for baseball, and I hope they would do this more than just every 4 or 5 years. I want this to be a every 2-year thing or a cycle. And I love Edwin Diaz. He kind of said like, "Oh yeah, I tore my ACL." Like, okay, like it wasn't like he knew what happened, but he knew that it was more important for him to celebrate with his team than for it to all fall out. And so, again, I think Keith, you need to really watch what you say, because you don't know how this has impacted other people's lives, and it's not about you. You've never played baseball. You haven't played professional baseball. So like, just stop talking. Like, you don't know what it means to these guys. You haven't been in these guys' heads. So again, that's me rambling on. Josh, you can agree or disagree, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think whether or not the games mean anything, I guess you got to ask the players, right? Because they're the ones that are in these games. I mean, you got multimillionaires that are, I guess,
sacrificing.
I guess playing, if we're going to argue that these games are meaningless, I mean, spring training games are meaningless as well.
Exactly.
And we saw someone, I think, get a season-ending injury. Name escapes me, but sliding in the second base, and he's going to be out for a little while. And I mean, are we going to cancel all the spring training games too at this point? So these guys are playing these games because they want to be there. Getting a win for their country means something to them. And you basically said everything that I would have said at this point anyway.
Yeah.
I think the World Baseball Classic means something to these guys. Definitely means something to all these countries, maybe a little bit more than America, but this is one of the first years too that America's actually gotten like a lot of its superstar players to come out and play too. So I think that they're buying in and getting hyped up too, even winning it the last one, and now they got a chance to repeat as back-to-back champions.
Well, even like watch what they did when Ken Griffey Jr. was taking batting practice. All these veteran dudes
awesome,
are just
dude.
They're staring, watching, because
this
was their idol. And he's out there doing it. I'm like, this is what this brings, is having this opportunity. Like, you had Mike Piazza managing the Italian team. You know, you had the Czech Republic team, like I said, with a bunch of non-base, professional baseball players out there, winning ball games. You had Australia, who looked really good for most of the tournament. You had all these different teams, and it's just cool to see. And you had Shohei Ohtani, who took away, him, and then Yoshida, the new Boston Red Sox left fielder, took away for Japan. But it's just awesome. It's awesome to see. It makes me really excited about baseball.
Yeah. I've been having a little bit of fun with it on social media, though. There was a video, I don't know if you saw the one guy from Mexico struck out in the 8th and then snapped his bat in half over his knee. And I put a comment in and was like, I can't believe someone would get so upset over a strikeout in a meaningless baseball game. And everybody commenting back to me is mostly just been making fun of me for being a Cleveland Indians fan. But
that's normal. That's a normal thing.
Yeah, it's just me trolling. Like, I'm just trying to, I guess, get a gauge for it. I got like a lot of likes on it too, but
there you go.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of fun with it. Like, man, I can't believe someone gets so pissed about me. It's like, I'm advocating their point. Like,
yeah.
This game does mean something to these guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't know it. Internet's fun, but
it is fun.
Yeah, I think that's World Baseball Classic discussion wrapped up. One other thing we wanted to touch on today was just some moves going on in NFL free agency. Yes. I don't think that we've really touched on a ton of those. I think we've talked a little bit about like some of the big quarterback moves, the extensions, but there's been some pretty nice signings out there, some trades.
The Browns made signings. Well. Shocker.
Browns have made a couple.
Some nice
fixing some needs. Yeah. Today, I think the most notable one was Dallas Cowboys getting Brandon Cooks. Yep. Only had to give up a 5th and 6th rounder, I think, to get that. Dalton Schultz, former Cowboy, is now with the Houston Texans. Adam Thielen, out to Carolina now. It's another one that I remember seeing. Baker Mayfield to Tampa. C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaving Philly to go to Detroit. So all these kind of moves are definitely going to be making adjustments to our mock draft because some of these teams are just some of these teams are filling these needs in free agency, which we knew would happen. So it's like, okay, well, maybe now that Detroit has gone out and added some guys in the secondary, maybe they won't want to go out and take a guy like Christian Gonzalez with their 6th pick right there. Maybe a guy named Jalen Carter, who didn't have the greatest pro day as well and could further be slipping back, could go to a place like Detroit and team up on the defensive line with a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, So
It could.
it could, yeah. Ben, who have you been following? Who do you think's been adding a bunch of guys and losing a bunch of guys? Biggest winners and losers so far in free agency.
The Jets right now are a big loser for me. Like I think the Jets
how
are
so?
they are waiting for this Aaron Rodgers thing to fall. Supposedly, right? We still don't know completely.
Yeah, that's apparently agreed upon in principle. Like Aaron Rodgers is talking like he's already a Jets quarterback, and Green Bay's just, I guess, fighting for fair compensation.
This is my thing. What happens if it doesn't go through? Now it's very awkward for the Jets because you have Wilson
very awkward
sitting
for
there.
Aaron.
But you also have Wilson sitting there, and like, what do you tell him? Like, hey, buddy, by the way, we're sorry.
We believe in you again.
We love you. We would like you to be our quarterback. Would you do it? Right. At the end of the day, I think Aaron Rodgers does go to the Jets, right? So this could become a bust for me this is awesome for the Jets. It gives them a quarterback for a couple of years to kind of just to bank on, and hopefully that all goes well. But I outside that, the Jets, like, they haven't been able to do a lot. I mean, they got Lazard, but they haven't been able to do a lot. Just because I think they're waiting to see that domino fall. But I think the Packers could be in the running to trade up and get a quarterback if they don't want Jordan Love or however they want to work with that. But I guess a winner for me, and I know this is going to sound very cliche since I am a Browns fan and you're a Browns fan, but I think the Browns actually did pretty decent on their free agent signings. Tomlinson signing, I think it was the right money for a guy that can clog up the middle, which, as Josh and I know from the last year, they could not stop the run. They got I can't say his last name, but Double O. Yeah, we'll call him Double O. Very underrated pass rusher, and to have him opposite of Garrett is just going to be a deadly combination. They got help in the secondary with Thornhill from the Chiefs, which I was shocked they were able to pry him away. It just shows you I don't think the Chiefs have a lot of money because they're losing a lot of their guys. So I think that is interesting, just what the Browns have done. They brought back a couple other guys as well. Baker Mayfield is probably the most interesting signing for me because now, if you're Tampa, you signed a 1-year deal. What is your plan with Baker? Do you think Baker could be the guy? I don't know. It's interesting for me. That one's interesting, and the other one that was super interesting for me, and I don't quite get it. I don't know what's going to happen. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to Las Vegas? You had a chance, if you're Las Vegas, to in the draft to draft a top 4 quarterback in the draft, trade up even if you needed to. I mean, there's a couple teams in there that you could trade up with, and to make a move or two, with the Cardinals or somebody, make a move, but you don't, and you go with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if he's worth the money you gave him. He's been injured literally nonstop over the last few years. Is he going to be the guy you want to lead your offense? I don't know. And Josh McDaniels has shown, what has he shown over the last few years, that the last few head coaching spots, he chokes a lot or he doesn't finish the job. So for me, that was probably one of the bigger busts that I think no one's talking about, but I think they will be talking about in a few months as things struggle with the Las Vegas Raiders. What about you? Anything that stick out to you, or do you agree with me on some of these, or anything that pops out in your head?
Yeah, I think the Jimmy G one's definitely interesting. I don't know if they're rolling with him because he is obviously has been in a system with Josh McDaniels before over in New England. Maybe they also are going to continue to plan on drafting a quarterback, and they're going to have Jimmy just kind of be the guy while they develop a guy.
That's a lot of money for Anthony the guy Richardson to be there for a little bit. That's a lot of money for
these teams don't mind. It seems like paying even temporary quarterbacks to come and play, but like kind of like a quiet, low key winner for me. And I know they've been in the news for big trades too with the draft, but Carolina. I know they had to give up some picks
Yeah.
in DJ Moore to get that first pick, but some of the moves they've made, like getting guys like Miles Sanders, Adam Thielen, Hayden Hurst,
You put CJ Stroud in there?
yeah, like they're putting together an
Whoa.
offense that a young quarterback that they're going to draft is going to be able to function in. To add Von Bell to the secondary, like Carolina's been making like some silent moves this offseason, and even with I guess some of their coaching hires, it's been really good. I think Carolina's on the come up. Like I know they've
Yeah.
been going into a rebuild, and I think they're definitely doing it the right way.
Two things. I do think it's funny that the GM was like, yeah, Lamar Jackson would be great, but I think we're going to look at the QBs that we can draft. Basically, like putting the middle finger up to Lamar Jackson and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want you. Like, we just don't. Like, sorry.
Well, it's like, did they really trade up to the number 1 pick to draft anyone other than a quarterback too? Like, are they gonna
like a tackle maybe? Like,
are they gonna grab
yeah.
Will Anderson or Jalen Carter?
Yeah, like that's just weird to me. And they keep saying that this is where, Young's still going to go number 1. I'm like, no. I know who their head coach is now. He doesn't want a quarterback that's like that build. Like nothing against Young, he's very good. But I think he wants that long, slender, tall, can sling it, can run it if need be quarterback.
Oh, Will Levis. Yeah, I
Shut
agree.
up. Don't even. Oh, if that guy goes first, I think we'll all have a heart attack. But another thing I want to say is I do want to give props to the Bengals for saving their free agency, because I had them as an F grade.
It wasn't looking good, dude.
Because they lost Jesse Bates, they lost
Von Bell,
Von
who I just was
Bell,
talking about,
and they
Hayden
also
Hurst.
lost. But even that, then they lost some other minority guys, like some other guys. But then they go out and get Orlando Brown, which, by the way, they spent money. Hold up. When was the last time you saw the Bengals spend that much money on a guy? They better spend money on Burrow and on Jamar Chase, or
dude, I can't wait
shocked.
till they offer Joe Burrow like 8 years for $90 million or something like that.
Something ridiculous. But then, I'm very interested to see what happens. I think the reason why this also hurt them though is because they lost their former first round pick and tackle, who says he's going to want to be traded. So now it's like, now we got to fill another hole on the other side. So
is Cincinnati ever going to fix this this offensive line issue?
Jared, comment below, Jared. Let us know. We would love to hear your thoughts. Offensive line, the
secondary, it's interesting. So
now there are still a few free agents out there that I think are interesting that could be pickups. Odell, we don't know where Odell's going. The Browns have supposedly been in the run. I said, please no. As a Browns fan, please no. I just, please no. That's all I'm asking. Just don't make that mistake twice.
My goodness.
I think, there are some interesting ones out there. I know like Nicole Hardman, I know that's one a lot of people are after. Paris Campbell to the Giants was weird. I don't know why. That was just a weird one for me. I don't know. That was just like, why are you paying him that money? He's very injury prone. I don't know if there's any other weird, like really awesome signings or really bad signings. There's a couple of running backs on the move. I know, what's the guy, Williams from Detroit, went to New Orleans, and basically he told Detroit basically, you didn't pay me enough money. You're not offering me enough money, so it's disrespectful. I'm leaving. I'm going to New Orleans.
And then Detroit went out and got David Montgomery to basically fill in his spot. So
yeah. And I think the Bears had a pretty good offseason as well. Maybe not a great offseason, but they did get a target for Fields, and I think that allows them to have more flexibility, I think, when it comes to the draft, and to get a guy like we both said, Johnson, on the outside of being a tackle box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely some more guys out there. I think that Fletcher Cox and Levante David are still free. I think has Bobby Wagner been picked up too?
No. Levante David has, I think, I believe he's re-signed for a year with the Buccaneers. I believe. I think I read that somewhere. Yes. So I believe he's re-signed.
Let's see. I'm not going to spell his name right. So let's see. Levante David.
I think it's Lavante.
Oh, I missed an O there. Yeah, it looks like sticking with Tampa Bay. You're right.
Yeah. So he's off the market. Fletcher Cox will be interesting. I don't know where he'll go, but that'll be an interesting one.
Watching Philly too, man. Like they've
lost some guys. They've lost a lot of guys.
Yeah, they've lost some guys. They were able to re-sign Slay. I think James Bradbury stuck around, but there's been some guys, like we said, that I mentioned Gardner Johnson. I think Hargraves from interior D-line is gone, and Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
They
man.
did get Jason Kelsey back. Jason Kelsey's coming back.
Yes,
So that's
Kelsey's not retiring. He's coming back. I believe. It sounds like Lane Johnson's gonna come back too. So
I think this is my thing, though. I've said that when Jason Kelsey goes, Lane Johnson will go. I think whoever retires first, the other one will retire as well. I think those two are kind of like a tandem there.
Yeah.
But we need more of the New Heights podcast, so we need to have them playing. As I like that analysis, but
do we need them playing, or do we need them not to play so we can get multiple episodes a week?
that is true. That would be nice as well. That would be nice. But no, I think
I'm selfishly hoping Taylor Lewan retires too from More Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
Yeah, I would love. They keep saying he might go to the Browns. I'm like, we don't need Taylor Lewan. He's a Michigan guy. We don't need another guy. But no,
we also don't need another tackle that's injury prone either.
That is true.
We got enough.
Got enough of those. But I will say, football talk. We'll go a little bit. We're going to HFL. That's the league that I coach in. We lost like 40 something to like 19 or something like that. So, preseason. Gotta love the preseason games. But no, I think in general it's been a great off season, I think, for a lot of teams. But we will let you know that next week we are planning to update our mock draft, so we'll be
discussing Final Four matchups. We'll be discussing mock draft 2.0. By that point, we'll also know who won the World Baseball Classic, and we can see how meaningless it was to the country that won. And it's going to be a good episode.
It'll be a good episode. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in with us this week. Again, let us know in the comments. I want two things I want you to talk about this week in the comments. First thing, is the World Baseball Classic meaningless? Is it meaningless? And if so, give us a reason. If not, give us a reason. Just let us know what you think. And then also the second thing is, who was your winner of NFL free agency, and who was your loser? So who do you think won free agency? Who lost free agency? I think the Vikings are also there. I didn't mention them. They barely did anything during free agency, and they lost a lot of guys. Yeah. So that's another one that would be very interesting to see what happens in the draft. But that is for next week. We'll discuss all that next week. But if you've enjoyed the episode of the podcast here on YouTube, if you're watching, our shiny faces, my sunburned face, you can't really tell it's sunburned, and, Josh's pink, red, whatever color sweatshirt that is. If you've enjoyed watching us on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a big old thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let us know that you're enjoying the podcast. What's going to happen next, what's going to happen then, there, when, how, what are all the different things that will happen. Let us know. And if you're loving us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, make sure you share it. Share the link with your friends. Put it on your stories of Instagram or Facebook or wherever. And make sure you give us a nice rating. And again, once again, make sure you in the comments answer those questions we ask you. It's really fun to engage with you guys. It's fun to be wrong sometimes as well, as my bracket has shown. But we hope you guys have a great weekend. Go ahead and watch some March Madness, watch some baseball. Hopefully you're enjoying the warm weather that is happening, at least here in Europe. I don't know about in America, but hopefully you're enjoying the weather with family and friends. And until next week, we'll see ya.